In this lecture, we're going to talk a little bit more about the three states of data, regardless of which type of organization we are in. We want to protect our sensitive data from disclosure, alteration, and destruction. And if you remember, those are the three opposites of the CIA triad. We have data at rest, data in motion, and data in use. All three of the protection profiles should be similar. And where we can encrypt data at rest and data in motion, we can't with data in use. So here we would use compensating controls. But let's start out with data at rest. It is data on a storage media somewhere that is not being used and it is not being moved. That could be on your hard disk or a storage tape, a CD, DVD, USB, anywhere where we store data when it is not being used. And for all of those, where possible, we want full disk encryption or media encryption. If full disk encryption is not an option, then we definitely want it for the parts that have the sensitive data. Let's say we work somewhere where both the operating system and the data on a workstation is on the same disk. Well, then we can't have full disk encryption, but we can have encryption on the partition that has the sensitive data. That said, we should follow industry best practices and never have the two on the same drive. If we're talking about backup tapes, they should always be encrypted. And that can be either hardware or software encryption. Both of those are what they sound like. Hardware encryption is the physical drive that writes the backup data to the tape. At the same time, it also encrypts it. Software encryption is the program that we use for our backups that also does the encryption. It is normally faster using hardware encryption, but it is not always the best solution. Here, again, due diligence, we find the right solution and then implement that. For USB drives and other removable drives, we would do the same we do for the disks, full disk encryption. Now, if for whatever reason we have chosen to use CDs or DVDs for backup or storing data, they also need to be encrypted. But the encryption here is much easier to break, so really, if at all possible, we should never ever use them, at least not for sensitive data. Which then brings us to data in motion. Makes sense again. It's moving from somewhere to somewhere else. This is you sending an email or going and pulling data from an application server or browsing online. Data moving from A to B. Here, again, the answer is encryption. Many companies are pretty good about encrypting traffic that leaves our internal network, which makes sense, right? The internet is a scary place and traffic can be picked up pretty easily. But what about our internal network? If we send unencrypted traffic on our internal network and an attacker has access to it, well, then they can pick up all our traffic. You can see where this is going, right? We encrypt internal traffic as well. It might add a few milliseconds, and a millisecond is 1/1000th of a second. There are 1000 milliseconds in 1 second. So if we add 5 or 10 or 20, you're not going to notice. Now, which type of encryption and how we use it depends on our use case. We might choose to encrypt the entire package or just the payload. That is the actual data. What we choose is based on our due diligence. Now we get to the last and the most difficult state that data can be in. Data in use. Since we're actively using it, we cannot encrypt it. Here, we really have to rely on policies, procedures, and user training to raise their awareness. As part of that, we could have a clean desk policy or a print policy. Clean desk means you cannot have data on your desk printed that is sensitive if you are not at the desk. If you need to leave your desk, it doesn't matter if it is to go get coffee or go to the bathroom. The second you leave, you need to have a clean desk. If you're done using the paper data, then it needs to be shredded. If you are not done, then it needs to be locked away. Your desk is clean. Another policy we could have that can help us protect our sensitive data is a print policy. I have worked in many places where people just print sensitive data and then, I'll pick it up in a little bit. You can walk over to the printer, there will be no one around, and there will be personal identifiable information, personal health information, or banking information. I have seen all three. In some of the cases, people came up and said, "Hey, did anyone see that print I did yesterday with this account information?" No, you and I both know that should never happen. And this is one of those places where, even though we have the policy, people don't really follow it. So what do? We could, of course, punish them, but is that really going to work? A much smarter solution is having them send the print job to a print queue, which, of course, also has to be secure. And once they're at the actual printer, then they swipe their card and the printer prints. We could also, for employees that work with sensitive data, have view-angle protectors. If an employee sits right in front of the monitor, they can see everything on it. It is a tiny bit darker, but they can see everything. Now, if someone is standing just 20 degrees or 30 degrees outside of the view angle in the center of the monitor, they can't see what's on the screen. On top of that, we would also have a policy saying you're not allowed to stand behind people when they're working on sensitive data. And then finally, we lock our PCs when we leave them. Again, it doesn't matter if you're just talking to the person next to you and you're walking over there, you're going to the bathroom, or getting coffee. And even for me, that was something I needed to learn. While I understood and knew it was a good idea, I just forgot about it. I mentioned it already when I worked in that bank as the IT manager. Within my first 2 months, maybe, I bought pizza for the entire team 4, maybe 6 times, because when you left your PC open, people would seize the opportunity and send an email to the entire team saying, "Hey, I'm buying pizza." As you can tell, I still think that story is pretty funny. It's also a good example of how I had the training. I knew what I was supposed to do, but them sending the emails out and me having to buy pizza, that raised my awareness. For data at rest and data in motion, we mostly use technical controls because anything that can be automated that happens behind the scenes is much more secure than anything that is not. For data in use, it is mostly training. It is an administrative control that we then enhance with the technical controls that we can. That could be that a PC locks on its own after 1 minute of inactivity, or the printer that only prints when you swipe your keycard.